না মোবাইল করে নিয়েছি, আমি তো বিশ্বাস করি না। My personal relation with him, and he actually had his MBBS from Medical College Calcutta in 1981, followed by his juniorship, residentship in IP Jipmar, PGI Chandigarh. He did his MD in the year 1987, and after that he came back to Calcutta and joined in the service, West Bengal Health Service, followed by Medical Education Service. He has a number of publications in the Index Journal. Also, he is an examiner of both undergraduate and postgraduate students in the West Bengal University of Health Sciences, and also in Guwahati University, as well as in RIMS Ranchi. And with these few words of introduction, I will request Professor Chatterjee to introduce our learned speaker, Dr. Sudeep Ghosh, in this forum, and to start the proceedings. Thank you. Over to Dr. Chatterjee, please.
Thank you, Minalda, for all your good words of my achievements. I am almost on the verge of retiring from WBMES. So what 30 years I am in this MES. I have met many physicians, and what today I am seeing, they are all maybe a bit senior to me, but all of them love me very much. So when Apurva Mukherjee, one of our stalwarts, asked me whether you can be chairperson on a topic which is very close to my heart. In fact, I feel much more comfortable when I see patients of medicine who are referred to us with certain dermatologic findings, and we are able to provide them the diagnosis. That is the time when I feel very much elated, and I feel that my knowledge of medicine is being helped by people from dermatology world. With this, as you know, that dermatology is a subject where you can find certain things which will help you to diagnose very difficult medical problems also. And I know the speaker today, with whom I had a very good relationship. He was one of our best students of dermatology who has got an immense knowledge of medicine also. With these words, I asked Professor Sudeep Ghosh. Presently, he is one of the faculty of Arjikar Medical College as professor, and almost everyone in the field of medicine and dermatology know that he is perhaps at present is the most important dermatologist who can provide very knowledgeable approach to diseases of dermatology, where you find certain things which may help to people to diagnose or physicians to diagnose that medical problem. So with this, I invite Professor Sudeep Ghosh to present his learnings to the physicians, so that in future the physicians with certain findings of dermatology may be able to diagnose that disease. So over to Professor Sudeep Ghosh. This is a brief biodata of Professor Sudeep Ghosh. You can go through this biodata.
So, thank you, sir. So, diseases of several organs often have prominent cutaneous features, and not infrequently, the cutaneous signs can be the presenting features of these diseases. And as you know that skin is the window of our body, and an experienced clinician can perceive the internal organs through this window. My respected teachers, my seniors, and dear colleagues, today my topic of discussion is skin manifestations of systemic diseases. And I have no conflict of interest. And at this outset, I must express that it is a vast subject, so it is rather impossible to cover every pros and cons of these topics within 1 hour period. So in this presentation, I would focus on the common mucocutaneous manifestations of diabetes mellitus, nervous system, GI system, and renal system. And if time permits, I will touch upon some mucocutaneous manifestations of your respiratory system. And at this outset, I take the opportunity to invite you to join an webinar on 23rd October evening, organized by the Department of Dermatology, R G Kar Medical College, where we'll discuss upon several mucocutaneous manifestations of systemic diseases over a period of time period of 3 hours. And our main focus of discussion would be on autoimmune connective tissue disease, endocrine disease beyond diabetes mellitus, and hepatobiliary system. I would provide you the link also. Now, before we start, as you all know that skin is a very descriptive subject. So I think it is relevant here to recapitulate the basic terminologies of dermatology before going to the actual discussion of the topic. So whenever we come across a cutaneous lesion, first of all, we have to identify the nature of the lesion, the secondary changes, and other things. So we have to identify the primary lesion. First of all, what do you know by macule? What do you mean by a macule? Macule is an area of altered coloration which is neither elevated nor depressed from the surface, and which is usually less than 1 centimeter in size. And if it is more than 1 centimeter in size, it is known as patch. What is a papule? Papule is a solid elevated lesion with less than 1 centimeter in size, and when it is more than 1 centimeter in size with a perceptible depth, it is known as nodule. Plaque is an area of altered consistency which is usually elevated, having a flat surface without any substantial depth and more than 1 centimeter in size. What do you mean by bulla and vesicle? It's an area with fluid filled area with, if it is less than 1 centimeter in size, it is known as vesicle, and if it is more than 1 centimeter, it is known as bulla. Pustule is a focal area of purulence which may be folliculocentric or extrafollicular in nature. Ulcer, erosion, fissure, this term we often come across in our description. So what is erosion? It's a breach in continuity of the surface epithelium involving a portion of the epidermis only. And what do you mean by ulcer? When it involves at least a portion of the dermis, breach in the continuity of the surface epithelium with involvement of at least a portion of the dermis is known as ulcer. And fissure is a longitudinal cleft within the skin. Purpura, area of hemorrhage within skin or mucosa. And by the term telangiectasia, we mean that there is permanent dilatation of the small cutaneous blood vessels. Scale is a either dry or moist laminated mass of keratin, and lichenification is a triad of altered consistency of the skin with hyperpigmentation, thickening of the skin, and with accentuated skin markings. Crust is dried up exudate, often admixed with cellular debris. Next, after identification of the morphology, we have to look at the shape and configuration. Configuration means spatial relationship of one lesion to other. And we must examine the hair, nail, and oral mucosa. And ultimately, we have to recognize a pattern to come to or narrow down our differential diagnosis. For example, eczematous pattern, psoriasiform pattern like this. And throughout my discussion, I would like to emphasize on head-to-toe examination of skin that will provide you certain clues which help to diagnose underlying internal disorders. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. So throughout my next lecture, I will show you more snapshots rather than a didactic lecture. So let us start with diabetes mellitus. As you know that diabetes is a very important topic, and there are several mucocutaneous changes in diabetes mellitus. So the mucocutaneous changes of diabetes mellitus can be broadly divided into, they may depend on the metabolic, vascular, neurologic, or immunologic changes, or it may be related to some unknown pathogenesis. There are miscellaneous non-specific changes of diabetes mellitus, and some of the mucocutaneous changes are iatrogenic in nature, either due to oral hypoglycemic or due to insulin. So let us see one by one. So first of all, I will discuss the cutaneous disorder of diabetes mellitus associated with metabolic, vascular, neurologic, or immunological abnormalities. So what is this? This is a patient with type 1 diabetes, and you can appreciate there is a black, velvety, corrugated in nature, some plaque over the nape of the neck and also in the periorbital area. So this is actually acanthosis nigricans, a very important marker of diabetes mellitus. This is another pattern of acanthosis nigricans. This is also related with diabetes. Often we come across this kind of pigmentation over the face. And these are known as skin tags, soft papules over the nape of the neck and axilla and other areas of the body. And in recent studies, it has been shown that it is rather a more important marker than acanthosis nigricans of insulin resistance. All of you know, this is classically known as prayer sign. There is a rhomboid shaped gap here due to chorioarthropathy. And this is a very classical feature of diabetes mellitus. Here in this picture, you can appreciate multiple yellowish papules in different areas. These are actually xanthoma. So xanthomatous eruption, and particularly this kind of eruption, this is known as eruptive xanthoma. They are very much related to diabetes mellitus. They are often related to hypertriglyceridemia. So in this picture, this is a young girl, and you can appreciate the level of triglyceride level. This high, very high triglyceride level is there, associated with other systemic features. And these yellowish lesions, these are very classical of, these are due to eruptive xanthoma, and they are very classical of diabetes mellitus. This is another very important picture of we come across in our clinical practice. There may be some thickening with erythematous lesion, with sclerodermoid appearance. They usually starts from the shoulder. This is known as scleroderma. This scleroderma, there are several other reasons of scleroderma. They may be related to paraproteinemia or sometimes due to streptococcal infection, but they are often we come across this kind of scleroderma in the setting of diabetes mellitus. Diabetic foot complications are very important. You can appreciate there are some trophic ulcer. And in our clinical practice, we often are puzzled whether this is due to leprosy or due to diabetes mellitus. So you have to follow some certain important clues. In case of leprosy, usually the anesthesia is patchy in nature. Usually tendon jerk, ankle jerk is preserved. There may be thickening of the nerve, and there is usually no vascular compromise. Some gangrenous changes can occur. They are very important to save the limb, to identify this lesion. And this is a case of wet gangrene, and this is due to dry gangrene, where you can get some vascular compromise. Candidiasis is another very important marker of diabetes mellitus. It may be oral candidiasis. You can find it in the digital areas, interdigital areas, or even in the hand. However, this kind of candidiasis is most important thing. In our clinical practice, it is almost a certain marker of diabetes. In more than 95% of the cases, we usually the blood glucose level is altered in such cases. And there are some characteristic fissuring. You can appreciate the characteristic fissuring here. This characteristic fissuring is very classical of candidal balanoposthitis. And this is almost a certain marker of diabetes mellitus. Extensive dermatophytosis, we often come across in the setting of diabetes. Although there are some controversy, there may be presence of onychomycosis. And these lesions, very rarely we come across, but these are very important to identify. These are actually mucormycosis. And this is these pictures are from pre-COVID era. In COVID time, we have come across a lot of cases of mucormycosis. However, in pre-COVID era, these are almost related to either diabetes mellitus or a marker of HIV. We also get palatal perforation in the setting of mucormycosis. And you can also appreciate adjacent area, there is presence of candidiasis. And this mucormycosis, they are often associated with diabetic ketoacidosis. Extensive furuncle, there is necrosis of the hair follicle. Extensive furuncle is an important marker of diabetes. However, these are actually carbuncle. A very tender indurated lesion having multiple orifices, discharging pus. These are actually carbuncle, and they are very much related to diabetes mellitus. What is this? This is, and what is this? What is the difference between these two pictures? Here, you can appreciate there is a very sharp outline. These are due to erysipelas. These are due to erysipelas, and there is usually involvement of the ear also. And in case of cellulitis, there is diffuse margin. And with increased severity, there may be some necrotic areas. And these black necrotic areas, necrosis means circumscribed death of cell within living tissue, some blackish area. And here you can appreciate the necrotic area. These are due to necrotizing fasciitis. This is a surgical emergency. So always you have to identify this thing. Otherwise, it may produce some compartment syndrome and ultimately the limb may be lost. So you have to identify this thing. And this is another association of diabetes mellitus, although it can be found in non-diabetic as well. These are actually known as erythrasma. And this is the wood slump picture of erythrasma demonstrating coral red appearance. Now, coming to the disorder associated with diabetes mellitus with unknown pathogenesis. This is very classical. Some yellowish plaque with underlying telangiectasia or venous prominence. And sometimes there may be some ulceration. These are actually due to necrobiosis lipoidica, very classical of diabetes, although it may be found in near about 50% of the cases may be non-diabetic as well. Disseminated granuloma annulare, you can appreciate some annular lesion, and the margin are usually studded with tiny firm papules. These are often found in the setting of diabetes mellitus. This is known as diabetic shin spot, otherwise also known as diabetic dermopathy. It may be atrophic or some pigmented spot over the shin in a diabetic patient. And on the other picture, you can appreciate some brownish pigmentation throughout the limb. These are actually known as pigmented purpuric dermatosis. They are often associated with diabetes, although it can be found in non-diabetic as well. Another very important clinical features of diabetes mellitus, some keratotic papules. You can appreciate some depressed cup-like areas after removal of the plug. This is known as acquired perforating dermatosis. These are often found in diabetics, particularly when they are also having renal failure. So this kind of picture, that is acquired perforating dermatosis, they are very important marker of diabetes mellitus and chronic renal failure. Diabetic bulla, we have reported this way back in 2009. Actually, there are some non-inflammatory bulla without any history of trauma, without any inflammation. There are some miscellaneous non-specific marker of diabetes. In Western literature, we found that this kind of pigmentation, that is reddish erythematous lesion, they are very common. But in Indian skin, it is often difficult to perceive this kind of lesion. This is actually diabetic rubeosis. And this kind of lesion often denote underlying microangiopathy. You can also get some dry hand with erythema. Palmar erythema is also an important clinical finding of diabetes mellitus. Also, it can be found in other mucocutaneous systemic disorder like rheumatoid arthritis, chronic myeloid leukemia, chronic febrile illness, thyrotoxicosis, pregnancy, and amongst others. Another important autoimmune disorder, you can appreciate there is no hair in the axilla eyebrow, scalp, and also in axilla. So this is actually alopecia universalis, an autoimmune disorder. It may be also linked with diabetes. And nowadays, it has been shown that a large number of psoriatic patients have altered glucose level. In lichen planus also, there is metabolic abnormality, and also in case of vitiligo, there is association with diabetes mellitus. Skins are often very dry, and there is almost no sweating. It can be demonstrated by negative starch iodine test. Here also you can appreciate dry xerotic skin. It is often found in diabetics. And don't forget that there are some cutaneous complications. They are related to diabetes treatment. So here in this picture, you can appreciate there is some lipoatrophy and pigmentary changes. This is due to insulin. And certain drugs may have some important cutaneous side effects. For example, in case of metformin, you can get some vasculitic changes, and some erythema multiforme-like lesions can also be evident. In glibenclamide, you can get pemphigus vulgaris-like lesion. In sulfonylurea, you can get lichenoid drug eruption, lichen planus-like drug eruption, and acarbose are often reported with acute generalized xanthematous pustulosis. Usually, these patients often present with some extrafollicular teeny pustules on an erythematous background. So to sum up, you have to do a head-to-toe examination. In face, what we can get? You can get the lesions of mucormycosis, oral candidiasis. There may be xanthelasma, which is a marker of altered lipid level, and diabetic rubiosis. In axilla, you can get erythrasma. In hand, you can get prayer sign, and also there may be features of candidiasis, onychomycosis, erythema may be there, palmar erythema, some xanthomatous lesion, or on the back of the hand, on the dorsum, you can get the lesions of granuloma annulare. In the thigh, you can get lipoatrophy, and in leg, you can get particularly necrobiosis lipoidica, diabetic dermopathy, acquired perforating dermatosis, PPD. I have shown you all the pictures. In the ear, you can get some vertical furrows in the ear lobule. That is known as Frank sign. It is often a marker of coronary artery disease, and it can also be found in the setting of diabetes mellitus. In the neck, you can get acanthosis nigricans and some skin tags, which are the marker of altered insulin resistance. In the shoulder, you can get scleroderma, carbuncle, granuloma annulare, eruptive xanthoma, and in the feet, particularly look for diabetic feet and bulla. So coming to the next system. There are certain clues which can detect the underlying neurological abnormality. So it can be divided into several groups. There may be dysplasia of the neural crest. There may be dysplasia of the neural crest leading to neurofibromatosis and tuberous sclerosis. Some vascular abnormality, we will show the picture. Pigmentary abnormality may be there. There are some epidermal nevus related underlying neurological disorder, some ichthyosis syndrome. These are actually the developmental disorder. So first of all, we'll discuss this developmental disorder. So what is shown here, you can appreciate there are some soft nodules on different areas of our body. These are actually known as neurofibroma. And these spots, these are known as café au lait macule. This is a very important marker of neurofibromatosis. You can appreciate the café au lait macules, and you can appreciate multiple freckle-like lesions, some pigmented dots in the axilla. This is actually known as Krauss sign. This can be also found in the inframammary region and also in the inguinal region. So these lesions are very important clues to the diagnosis of neurofibromatosis type 1. Here in this picture also, there is a plexiform neurofibroma. Here you can appreciate multiple café au lait macule, and you can appreciate the kyphoscoliosis in this patient. These are also very important marker of neurofibromatosis type 1. This is a Caffarelli macule. And here, there is widening of the sphenoid. This is also seen in the setting of neurofibromatosis type 1. Multiple freckle-like lesions, plexiform neurofibroma, some isolated neurofibroma. And if you press on the lesion, there may be some buttonholing-like sensation. Here also, you can appreciate a large Caffarelli macule, and this is actually a plexiform neurofibroma, and there are some abnormal hair growth as well. Here also, you can appreciate plexiform neurofibromatosis. And this is also a picture of plexiform neurofibroma. Coming to another important and very interesting case related to neurocutaneous syndrome. There are multiple slightly brownish erythematous papules all over the face. In all these patients, you can appreciate such papules. These are actually known as angiofibroma, and otherwise it is also synonymously known as adenoma sebaceum. Also, this is a misnomer. Angiofibroma is the correct term. You can appreciate some dental pitting in such patients along with the facial lesion. Here, you can appreciate some soft plaque or firm plaque over different areas of the body. These are actually known as shagreen patch, shark skin-like. And this is also a large shagreen patch. In this patient, you can appreciate some oval-shaped, hypopigmented or depigmented lesion. These are known as ash-leaf macule due to their resemblance with European mountain ash. Here also, you can appreciate this thing. And there are some small lesion in comparison to the ash-leaf macule. These are known as confetti macule. These are also important marker of tuberous sclerosis. So all these pictures are consistent with the diagnosis of tuberous sclerosis. And in such patients, you can appreciate some fibrous papule at the nail fold. These are known as Conant's tumor, periungual fibroma, without any history of trauma. This is very important. This is known as Conant's tumor. Another very important topic for the clinicians, you can appreciate some erythematous persistent lesion, non-blanching in nature, over the face and upper part of the body also. So this is actually a port wine stain. And particularly when this port wine stain involves the ophthalmic and maxillary division of trigeminal nerve, particularly you have to rule out the Sturge-Weber syndrome. And here you can appreciate the calcification of the brain. Patient may present with convulsion. This is another very interesting case. Patient had erythematous patch on different parts of the body, port wine stain. And he also had overgrowth of the left upper limb. In the eye, he has some pigmentary changes along with port wine stain. This is known as ocular melanosis. Gum hypertrophy is there. And there is overgrowth of the left side of the hand along with the soft tissue swelling. In USG also, you can appreciate there is muscle mass is increased in the left side. And this is the classical tram tract calcification in simple radiology in X-ray. And this is the CT scan finding. Actually, this patient had a combination of feature. He had Sturge-Weber syndrome. And this ocular melanosis along with these pigmentary changes is known as phacomatosis pigmentovascularis. And also this limb overgrowth along with a vascular mark is known as Stippel-Tenoni syndrome. So actually he has a combination of these three features along with convulsion. So in a patient with facial port wine stain, you have to always rule out whether the patient is having other features of Sturge-Weber syndrome or not. Another very interesting case, the patient had ataxia and some telangiectasia, ocular telangiectasia. You can appreciate the telangiectasia. We have already discussed that there is some permanent dilatation of the small blood vessels of the skin. So this is a classical case of ataxia telangiectasia syndrome. This is another patient with ataxia telangiectasia syndrome. The patient also had some telangiectatic lesion on the neck area, apart from the ocular telangiectasia. This is another interesting case. This is known as cutis marmorata telangiectatica congenita. The patient also had intracranial vascular abnormality. So we have to find out such thing. Patient often present with convulsion, and we have published a series on this. This is a case of phacomatosis pigmentovascularis. The patient has port wine stain along with ocular melanosis, and in addition, the patient had several intracranial vascular abnormality. And whenever a patient comes to you with the ocular symptom, there is periocular depigmented areas along with features of meningism or intracranial features, we have to rule out Vogt-Koyangi-Harada syndrome. You can appreciate the color of the iris. So this is known as heterochromia iris. Apart from that, there is synophy. The eyebrows are joined or connected. And there is ocular hypertelorism is there. These are very important clues to the diagnosis of Waardenburg syndrome. And you can get neural deepness in the setting of Waardenburg syndrome. There is classical nose changes as well. So in Waardenburg syndrome, in certain cases, you can get, apart from neural deafness, you can get some neurological features. White forelock is a very important clue to the diagnosis of Waardenburg syndrome. In type 3 Waardenburg syndrome, you can also get some limb abnormality. And this is another important clues to the diagnosis of underlying neurological disorder. This patient actually had some spasticity of his limbs. Patient has some freckle-like lesion, some pigmented lesion, and some depigmented or hypopigmented lesion, particularly over the acral areas, and some freckles over his face. He has basal ganglion calcification. This was a case of dyschromatosis symmetrica hereditaria. After a few years, we also get another similar case. There are multiple hypopigmented lesion and some pigmented freckle-like lesion on different parts of the acral areas. The patient has some spasticity, some extrapyramidal syndrome. In conjunction with Dr. Kono from Japan, we have done the genetic analysis, and this is a novel genetic mutation was there, ADAR1 mutants, and we have published it in British Journal of Dermatology. Actually, this is a case of, again, dyschromatosis symmetrica hereditaria. So the clinical clues are actually some pigmented freckle-like lesion over the acral areas and face, and some depigmented spot as well in the acral areas. So when such patients present with some neurological symptom, we have to evaluate it accordingly. Another very interesting case, often the patients have some underlying neurological abnormality. You can appreciate the hole pattern of the lesion. There are some holding, some hole-like lesion. This is actually incontinentia pigment. This is another case of incontinentia pigmenti. The patient may have some neurological abnormality. And this is actually hypopigmentation with pigmentary mosaicism. And they are often also associated, or previously it was known as hypopigmentation of Ito. They are often associated with neurological abnormality. This is almost generalized melanocytic nevus having similar lesion involving the brain. These are congenitally acquired. The lesions are present since birth. These are actually nevus sebaceous. They are often associated with syndromic association with some neurological abnormality. And this is nevus unius lateralis or verrucous epidermal nevus. These kind of nevus are often associated with underlying neurological abnormality. So we have to identify the cutaneous clues. Another very important thing, you can appreciate the spasticity of the lower limbs in this patient. The patient may have developmental delay, some intellectual disability, speech difficulty, seizure, and spastic diplegia, or often the patient may have spastic tetraplegia as well. This is actually Sjogren-Larsen syndrome. So these are all about the developmental disorder. Coming to the metabolic and infectious disorder. In metabolic disorder, Fabry's disease, these are actually angiokeratoma. When it involves only the scrotum, it is known as angiokeratoma fortis. It may be generalized in case of Fabry's disease, particularly in the bathing suit distribution. I will show you later on in the description of renal disorder. So these are actually very important clues to the diagnosis of underlying Fabry's disease, angiokeratoma corporis diffusum. The patient may have some acroparesthesia, patient may have some headache-like feature, and several neuropathy, features of peripheral neuropathy as well. Musty odor in the breath, skin or urine, history of seizure, and blonde skin. Always rule out phenylketonuria. Always rule out phenylketonuria in such patients. We often get referral from the SNCU, that is neonatal ICU. And in some patients, we may get some blonde skin, which may be associated with underlying your neurological disorder. One of them is phenylketonuria. And another important thing, along with blonde skin, and there is ocular albinism. The patient have spasticity and seizure. We have examined the hair, and you can appreciate the clumping of the pigmentation within the hair shaft. These are very classical of Griscelli syndrome. The patient may have some psychomotor retardation, Griscelli syndrome, particularly Griscelli syndrome type 1, and sometimes in case of type 2, you may get neurological abnormality. In ICU, we often get such lesions. These are very common, herpes simplex. But whenever these patients are unconscious, always rule out herpes simplex encephalitis. Varicella also may be generalized and may involve the brain. So there may be features of meningism and features of encephalitis. In this particular patient, you can appreciate there is a lesion of herpes zoster, dermatomal distribution, grouped vesicular lesion on an erythematous base, unilaterally distributed along a dermatome. So this is a classical lesion of herpes zoster. But apart from these lesions, outside the level of dermatome, you can get multiple vesicular lesion all over his body, all over her body. These are actually disseminated herpes zoster. Whenever you get more than 20 vesicles outside the contiguous dermatome in a patient with herpes zoster, you have to find out disseminated zoster, and there may be viremia also, and there may be some CNS or spinal cord abnormality as well. Another very important case, although it is mostly found in the children, some grayish vesicular lesion over the palm. You can appreciate the elongated oval shaped grayish vesicular lesion inside the oral mucosa, and particularly over the buttocks, over the elbows, over the knees. These are actually hand, foot, and mouth disease. And certain strain of hand, foot, mouth disease, that is particularly enterovirus 72, they are often associated with, you have come across some cases in the pediatric ward, they are often present with seizure and neurological abnormality, particularly enterovirus 72. And whenever you come across a patient with leg ophthalmos, always try to rule out Hansen's disease, that is leprosy. You have to find out the thickening of the nerve. So in this picture, you can see there is facial palsy. In this particular picture, there is leg ophthalmos of this side, there is lower motor neuron type of facial palsy, and this is actually due to Hansen's disease. And in this particular patient, there is facial palsy of the right side, and you can appreciate the lesions of herpes zoster here. So this is actually Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. There is involvement of the geniculate ganglion by the herpes virus. This is another classical case of Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. You can appreciate the healing lesions of herpes zoster involving the right side of the face, and there is lower motor neuron type of facial palsy of the right side. So this is Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. Clawing of the hand, and one very important cause is leprosy. whether it may be a spectral presentation of leprosy or sometimes pure neuritic leprosy, may often present with only claw hand without any cutaneous features. And particularly regarding infection, don't forget about syphilis, neurosyphilis. Nowadays, there is less cases of classical Tabes dorsalis or other patients. But recently, we have come across a patient who presented with schizophrenia-like psychosis. And ultimately, it was proved to be a case of neurosyphilis. Another very important cutaneous lesion. Note the central blackish scar here. This is in a child, blackish scar. The patient may have also features of meningoencephalitis, seizure, delirium. These are classical of staph typhus. This is another very interesting case. You can appreciate some erythematous lesion at the periphery, some annular serpiginous border. Central area is hyperpigmented and in a healing stage. This is classical of erythema chronicum migrans of Lyme's disease. And particularly even in the early stage or in the early disseminated stage in particular, the patient may have some meningeal involvement, meningism, and sometimes encephalitis as well. And in the late stage, you can get the classical features of neurological features of Lyme's disease. There are some tense cystic lesions over different parts of the body. Patient had history of convulsion. And ultimately, the MRI proved to be, by MRI, it was proved to be a case of neurocystic sarcosis. And histopathology of this lesion also was consistent with neurocystic sarcosis. So in a patient with convulsion, if you come across this kind of tense cystic lesion in different parts of the body, always try to rule out neurocystic sarcosis. Some immune disorder, some iatrogenic disorder, and some miscellaneous disorder can also have both cutaneous and neurological features. What is this? This is, there are some multiple, partially blanchable, palpable pubic lesion. So these are classical of small vessel vasculitis. There may be association with central nervous system. And in this particular picture, you can appreciate there are some penile lesion, some prepuceal ulceration. The patient also had some oral ulceration. The patient had some erythematous tender lesion, some nodular lesion over the shin. These are actually erythema nodosum. And these are aphthous-like lesion, aphthous-like ulceration. And there is redness of the eyes. So always in such patient, particularly with neurological involvement, this, always rule out Behçet's disease. So we can do a very simple test at the bedside that is known as pathargy test. You have to inject a very small amount of normal saline. Otherwise, you can also prick the area with an insulin syringe. And after 24 to 48 hours, you have to take the reading to find out the classical papule. So the pathargy test was positive in this particular patient. In ICU, we often come across such patients. The patient had history of convulsion. So this is very classical lesions of ulcerated butterfly-like lesion was there over the face. The patient had SLE with neurological involvement. And this was another very interesting case. The patient was admitted in medicine ward under Professor Udas Ghosh. The patient had facial palsy. Along with that, she had 6-nerve palsy as well. The patient had some ichthyotic lesion, some dry fish scale-like lesion over different parts of the body. So suspecting this case of ichthyosiform sarcoid, we have done the biopsy, and there were multiple non-caseating monomorphic granulomatous lesion in different areas throughout the dermis. And this is the chest CT scan of the chest showing bilateral hilar adenopathy. And these are the lesions of neurosarcoid. The patient actually has neurosarcoid. And another part is the iatrogenic manifestations of neurological disorder. We often come across the lesions of toxic epidermal necrolysis, and nowadays most of the cases are from anti-epileptic drugs, particularly the carbamazepine and sometimes phenytoin. And this was a classical lesion of erythema, drug-induced erythema multiforme from lamotrigine. Coming to the miscellaneous group, this patient may have epilepsy, features of Parkinsonism in the initial neurological feature. The patient may have some convulsion. There are some xanthomatous lesion over the Achilles tendon. These are actually cerebrotendinous xanthomatosis. In ectodermal dysplasia, the patient have some difficulty in sweating. There is no sweating at all. There is poor development of the teeth, anidosis, and absence of hair. This is known as ectodermal dysplasia, and these patients often associated with intellectual disability, central nervous system malformation. Another very important differential diagnosis of Addison's disease in our ward. The patient may have some acral pigmentation or Addisonian pigmentation. Along with the patient have some tingling and numbness. Patient may have ataxia. So what is this? The patient may also have some glossitis as well. This is actually due to vitamin B12 deficiency. They may have Addisonian pigmentation, and they are very important clues to the diagnosis of underlying vitamin B12 deficiency. This is another important group of patients. The patient, actually, these are known as tail. These are actually redundant tail. And these are important marker. We have published a series on this, and almost all of the patients have underlying spinal dysraphism. The patient may have some sweating abnormality. Often such patients we come across in our OPD. Only these areas the patient have sweating. And this is the starch iodine test. You can appreciate that there is anidotic area around this hydrotic area. In the forehead also, this area the patient has sweating, and this is an anidotic patch. And you can appreciate that there are some pupillary abnormality of this patient. This may be due to autonomic dysfunction, dysautonomia. And so dysautonomia may be a certain important clinical clues to the, this pupillary abnormality and absence of sweating. This may be important clues to the underlying dysautonomia. Another patient having segmental sweating, and this is actually starch iodine test. This patient we have also published way back in 2009, along with Professor Biman Kanti Rai. So here also the patient presented with high-grade pyrexia, hyperpyrexia. And on clinical examination, we have found that there are some pupillary abnormality, patient have some dysautonomia, and patient has anidosis. So anidosis may be a very important clues to the diagnosis of underlying dysautonomia. You can appreciate some waxy papule and some hemorrhage around the eye. This is actually due to systemic amyloidosis, primary systemic amyloidosis. You can also appreciate the impression of the teeth at the lateral border of the tongue, and this is actually due to macroglossia. So these primary systemic amyloidosis patients often have features of peripheral neuropathy. And there may be some local causes of facial nerve palsy. In this particular patient, we have got some lesion near the pinna, and it was proved to be a case of progressing squamous cell carcinoma involving the facial nerve, leading to the facial nerve palsy. Another very important group of patients we come across in our OPD, these are known as xeroderma pigmentosum. You can appreciate multiple freckle-like lesions. There are some corneal scarring. Patient may have photophobia, intense photophobia. There may be some scarring at different parts of the body on photo exposure. There may be secondary changes, secondary malignant changes, particularly squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, or melanoma. This group of patients that is known as xeroderma pigmentosum. It's a DNA repair disorder. You can appreciate the freckles here. This group of patients, a subset of these patients may have some neurological abnormality. They have some walking difficulty, some spasticity, extrapyramidal features, and sometimes with low IQ, mental depression may be there. This is known as DeSantis-Cacchione syndrome. When this xeroderma pigmentosum is associated with such underlying neurological features, they are known as DeSantis-Cacchione syndrome. Another very important group of patients, the patient cannot perceive any pain. There may be some self-mutilating behavior. You can appreciate the broken teeth by the self-mutilating behavior of the patient, and there are some osteomyelitic changes also in his feet due to chronic infection. And this group of patient is known as hereditary sensory autonomic neuropathy type 4. We have come across several cases of hereditary sensory autonomic neuropathy type 4 in our clinical practice. The patient often presents they cannot perceive the pain sensation with self-mutilating behavior. This is another case of vitamin B12 deficiency we have already discussed. And this was another interesting case we have published in Indian Journal of Dermatology and Venereology. This is known as also raccoon's eye, periorbital hemorrhage. Actually, the patient had metastatic neuroblastoma, metastasis to brain and orbit. So in a child particularly, we have to always rule out such things. So to summarize, whenever you come across a patient with neurocutaneous syndrome, we have to do a head-to-toe examination. In scalp, we can find nevus sebaceous with underlying neurological abnormality. White forelock may be a feature of Waardenburg syndrome. There may be features of herpes zoster, Hansen's disease, or squamous cell carcinoma, sarcoidosis. Features of sarcoidosis may be there over the face. Raccoon eye, particularly in case of amyloidosis and also in case of metastatic neuroblastoma. Features of freckle-like lesion of xeroderma pigmentosum. Some features of dysautonomia. SLE, the classical rash we can find the Vogt-Koyangi-Harada syndrome, vitiligo-like lesion, particularly in the periocular distribution. And there may be some angiofibroma-like lesion in case of tuberous sclerosis, forehead plaque, and also the Sturge-Weber syndrome, we have missed it. So there may be some facial vascular patch. In case of neurofibromatosis, you can get the neurofibroma, and in Waardenburg syndrome, you can get the white forelock and the classical ocular features of Waardenburg syndrome. In the eye particularly, without any help of ophthalmologist, we can identify the telangiectasia, the pupillary abnormality of dysautonomia, redness of eye may be a feature of Behçet. There may be melanosis associated. Heterochromia iridis is a feature of Waardenburg syndrome. Lag of thalamus may be due to Hansen or even herpes zoster. Oral ulceration may be related to Behçet's. Dental pitting may be a feature of tuberous sclerosis. Absent or broken teeth may be a feature of either ectodermal dysplasia or hereditary sensory autonomic neuropathy, and macroglossia may be found in the setting of primary systemic amyloidosis. In the axilla, you can get freckle in neurofibromatosis, features of incontinentia pigmenti, pigmentary mosaicism or vein, verrucous epidermal nevus, they may be associated with neurological abnormality. Angiokeratoma may be a feature of Fabry's. Genital ulcer may also be a feature of Behçet. Several vascular lesion, ichthyosis, vasculitis, and erythema nodosum may be there in the leg. In the hand, particularly in the periangual area, you can find Conan's tumor of tuberous sclerosis. There may be clawing of hand. Muscular atrophy may be due to Hansen's disease. Waardenburg syndrome may have some skeletal abnormality. You may get features of dyschromatosis symmetrica hereditaria or other pigmentary changes. In the back, you can get the features of tail or chagrin patch of tuberous sclerosis, features of neurofibromatosis, Caffarel macule, kyphoscoliosis may be a feature of neurofibromatosis, Ashlip macule may be found in the setting of tuberous sclerosis. In the feet also, you can get the pigmentary changes of B12 deficiency. There may be some ulceration due to Hansen. Ashlip macule may be a feature of tuberous sclerosis, and xanthoma in association with neurological abnormality. You have to rule out cerebrotendinous xanthomatosis. So coming to the GI system. So cutaneous manifestations of GI system may be divided according to the site and pathology of the GI system. So diseases involving the esophagus, you may get some features of mucositis. You may get some features of mucositis. There may be some dysphagia or Howell-Evans syndrome. So let us see the clinical pictures first. So this is known as aphthous ulcer. In a patient with oral aphthous ulcer and pain abdomen, you have to rule out the features of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's in particular, and sometimes it may be associated with Behçet syndrome with GI manifestation as well. In pemphigus, you can get dysphagia with oral ulceration. In toxic epidermal necrolysis also, you can get dysphagia. And dysphagia may often be a feature of your dermatomyositis along with the classical heliotrope rash. Palmoplantar keratoderm. This is another important feature. And this may be linked with the very rare case of Howell-Evans syndrome. That is esophageal carcinoma, late onset esophageal carcinoma with congenital onset palmoplantar keratoderm. So disease of the pancreas, there may be features of acute pancreatitis in the form of ecchymosis at different areas of our body. There may be periumbilical hemorrhage leading to Cullen sign, flank hemorrhage known as Gray Turner sign. There may be hemorrhage in the upper thigh, hemorrhage in the scrotum. In pancreatic carcinoma, you can get the superficial migratory thrombophlebitis. There may be some other unexplained thrombosis and some paniculitis-like feature. And in the periumbilical area, you can get the sister Mary Joseph's nodule or the metastatic nodule of pancreatic carcinoma. And necrolytic migratory erythema, these are very rare, but often they are very important clue to the underlying glucagonoma. So what is this? This is actually the periumbilical hemorrhage known as Cullen sign. This is Cullen sign in a patient with acute pancreatitis. And this is known as Gray Turner sign, flank hemorrhage in a patient with acute pancreatitis. Patient may have erythema nodosum in the setting of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And this is migratory thrombophlebitis. This may be a feature of other GI malignancy as well as pancreatic malignancy. And this is very rare case. This is known as, this is a triad of diabetes mellitus, cutaneous lesion, and weight loss. This is actually a picture of glucagonoma. And these are actually necrolytic migratory erythema. And inflammatory bowel disease may have certain association with cutaneous lesion. There are some extra gastrointestinal manifestation of your inflammatory bowel disease. The patient may present with erythema nodosum. There may be perianal fistula in patients with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, particularly in Crohn's. The patient may present with pyoderma gangrenosum. In this particular picture, you can appreciate the cribriform scarring at one end and progression of the lesion on the other end. This is very classical lesion of pyoderma gangrenosum. Another case with underlying ulcerative colitis, you can appreciate the cribriform scarring. And Pious stomatitis vegitans is another important clue to the diagnosis of inflammatory bowel disease. This is another case of Pious stomatitis vegitans. The patient was responded well to systemic steroid. Another important clue to the diagnosis of Crohn's disease is granulomatous cheilitis. On histopathology, you can appreciate multiple granulomatous lesion. And there are several syndromes associated with colonic polyposis, and they have certain important clinical feature in the skin as well. So this is very important. This is labial hypermelanosis, some hyperpigmented melanotic macule over the lips and also in the buccal mucosa. The patient often presents with abdominal pain, vomiting, and bleeding tear. Patient may have intersusception. So this is Puech-Jaeger syndrome. This is Puech-Jaeger syndrome. And this is another very interesting case. The patient have some alopecia and some pigmentary lesion on different parts of the body, freckle-like pigmentation. The patient may have nail dystrophy as well, along with alopecia, and usually the oral mucosa is spared. This is known as conchoid Kannada syndrome. These lesions, these are known as steatosystoma multiplex or sebaceous cyst on different parts of the body. They are often associated with Gardner's syndrome, with colonic polyposis. In rectum, you can get the extramammary Paget's disease, features of extramammary Paget's disease. And several disorder may affect both the GI system and cutaneous system. We have discussed about the Fabry's disease. The patient may present with hemorrhagic manifestation. In case of hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia, I will try to show the clinical pictures first. So this is a perianal tubercular ulcer in a patient with GI tuberculosis. In a certain subset of patients, particularly from the pediatric age group, we can get some venous malformation in both the skin, in the oral mucosa, and also in the GI tract. These are known as blue rubber blade nevus syndrome. This is another patient presented to us with anemia, severe anemia, with some vascular malformation. These are actually venous malformation. And endoscopy revealed multiple venous malformation also in different parts of the GI tract. And these are known as phlebolith. These are very important indicator of venous malformation. And this is the ultrasonographic finding of the cutaneous lesion. So there is some venous malformation in the cranium as well. So actually these are known as blue rubber blade nevus syndrome. Patient may present with some anemia, patient may have some features of GI bleed. Another very important group of patients, the patient may have some yellowish plaque. These are actually known as plaque chicken appearance. This is a classical lesion of Pseudoxanthoma elasticum. Patient often present to us with GI bleeding. This is the classical ophthalmological feature, and this is the classical histopathological feature of this patient. Another group of patient may have some mucosal and cutaneous telangiectatic area, history of epistaxis, family history may be there, and GI bleeding. This is another patient with similar picture. This is known as hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia or Osler-Rendu-Weber syndrome. Zinc deficiency often presents with diarrhea, along with the classical lesions, particularly in the perineal area, along the perioral area, and also in the acral area. The patient may have some growth retardation. There may be some defect in the hair growth as well. This kind of patient often presents with diarrhea. So disease of 3D. This is classical Casals necklace. And these are the characteristic mahogany colored dyspigmentation and eczematization of the acral area. This is known as pellagra. Another patient of pellagra, you can appreciate the early Casals necklace here. And also there may be some stoma related complication, particularly in the peristomal area. You can get pyoderma gangrenosum or sometimes allergic or irritant contact dermatitis. There are certain cutaneous markers of GI malignancy. This is the acral acanthosis nigricans associated with adenocarcinoma of the GI tract. And this is a periumbilical nodule. This is known as sister Mary Joseph's nodule, firm, non-tender, skin-colored nodule. And ultimately, the patient has some carcinoma of the stomach. And this is the histopathology. Some metastatic nodule may be there due to GI malignancy. The patient had adenocarcinoma of the GI tract. Another important patient, another very rare presentation of this patient, there are some multiple skin-colored nodule on different parts of the body. And ultimately, the patient was proved to be a case of rectal melanoma with cutaneous metastasis. So in a patient with GI tract abnormality, over the scalp. You can get some alopecia, some pigmentary anomalies on different parts of the body. There may be some nail dystrophy along with colonic polyp. Telangiectasia is a very important feature of hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia. Blue rubber glebe nevus may often present with some vascular nodule on different parts of the face. Oral ulceration may be a feature of either ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, or it may be a feature of Behçet's syndrome. Systemic sclerosis often presents with dysphagia. SLE may have some GI tract abnormality. Dysphagia may be a feature. Granulomatous cheilitis is a very important feature of ulcerative colitis and particularly Crohn's disease. Weisgerger syndrome, you can get some oral melanosis. In Stevens-Johnson syndrome and pemphigus, both the eye and oral mucosa can be affected. In the neck, you can get the lesions of acanthosis nigricans of GI malignancy or the Cassel's necklace of pellagra along with dermatitis, dementia, and diarrhea. Some hemorrhagic spot and cysta meridioceps nodule, hemorrhagic spots of pancreatitis and cysta meridioceps nodule may be due to GI tract malignancy, or it may be a feature of acute pancreatitis. Tylosis or thickening of the palms may be a feature of GI malignancy, particularly esophageal carcinoma, which is known as Howell-Evans syndrome. In the leg, you can appreciate the lesions of erythema nodosum, pyoderma gangrenosum, vasculitis, and acrodermatitis enteropathica may have some cutaneous features over the palm. You can get some vesicular lesion over the elbow in association with celiac disease, that is known as dermatitis herpetiformis. Acrodermatitis enteropathica and extramammary Paget's disease may have some lesions in the perianal area. And in hand also, you can get nail dystrophy in case of Conkite-Kanada syndrome. So in renal disease, you can get several clues to the diagnosis of underlying renal disease. Without going into the theoretical detail, I will show you some picture. You can appreciate the muddy discoloration of renal disease, some brownish discoloration, and you can appreciate the scratch marks. The lesions are extremely pruritic due to gerotic skin and other reasons. The patients with chronic CKD, you get the scratch marks over the skin, and the skin is extremely dry and pruritic. It may be ichthyotic as well, some fish scale-like appearance. You can appreciate the scratch marks over the skin due to extreme pruritus, and there are some prurigo-like lesion. Some excoriated papules may be there over the several areas of the body due to extreme pruritus. This is also known as prurigo nodularis, some nodular pruritic lesion. What is this? This is, there are multiple chalky white material is coming out through the skin. This may be a feature of calcinosis cutis. And these are actually the classical lesion of calciphylaxis. This is often found in the setting of renal disease due to calcific arteriopathy. And sometimes in renal disease, you can get such patients. This is actually porphyria cutanea tarda with classical sclerodermoid skin presentation, some hairy pinna, some photo-induced blistering, dark color urine you can appreciate. And in Wood's lamp examination, you can appreciate the classical fluorescence of porphyria cutanea tarda. Another group of patients where you cannot get the dark urine, but some porphyria-like feature, these are often associated with dialysis. This is known as pseudoporphyria. You can appreciate some bullous lesion as well, some extreme photosensitivity. You can appreciate the clear demarcating mark here. The lesions are extremely photosensitive. These are actually due to pseudoporphyria, where the urine color is usually normal on Wood's lamp examination. This type of lesions are often found in CKD. We have already discussed. This is known as acquired perforating dermatosis. Some cap-like lesion are plugged into this papule. Another lesion of acquired perforating dermatosis. And sometimes you may get some sclerodermoid feature, although it is extremely rare nowadays. These are due to gadolinium dye used in the case of MRI. This is actually known as nephrogenic systemic fibrosis. Nowadays, it is extremely rare due to relative lack of use of this dye. And these lesions, there are some dryness and some frost-like lesion over the skin. This is known as uremic frost. These are often found in the setting of CKD. The nails may be white, and you can appreciate the half and half nail here, the classical lesion of chronic renal disease. You can get some hair abnormality in the setting of SLE nephropathy. The nails may be white, leukonychia in patients with nephrotic syndrome. There may be some distal onycholysis in the setting of photoonycholysis, particularly in the setting of pseudoporphyria. This is another patient with half and half nail. And several systemic diseases may have both renal and mucocutaneous manifestations. This is actually beyond the scope of this discussion within 1 hour. However, I'm showing you some interesting cases. This is a patient with tuberous sclerosis. You can appreciate the lesions of angiofibroma over the face, shagreen patch over the back, and actually the patient had angiomyolipoma of the kidney. This is a very interesting family. The patient had cutaneous leiomyoma. These lesions are extremely tender. Cutaneous nodules are there, and several members of the family have similar lesion on different parts of the body. And some of them have uterine leiomyoma, and some of them have renal carcinoma and renal cyst. This is actually known as Reed syndrome. SLE nephropathy, you can appreciate the lesions of SLE nephropathy along with the periorbital edema. You can appreciate the butterfly rash, some oral ulceration as well. The hair changes is also important. In case of SLE nephropathy, patient may have diffuse alopecia. In scleroderma also, you can get renal crisis or renal hypertension. This is known as the classical salt and pepper pigmentation of scleroderma. Mycostomia is there, fish mouth appearance, some hand changes, typical digital tip ulceration and scarring. And this is another very interesting case. You can appreciate some reddish papule in budding trunk distribution. And these are the genital lesion. You can appreciate the erythematous vascular papules and nodules on different areas over the vagina. These are actually angiofibroma, angiokeratoma. And this is a case of Fabry's disease. This is a case of Fabry's disease, the classical distribution. And these are the genital lesion. This is the characteristic histopathology. And in genital lesion, we have performed radiofrequency ablation. And this is the result. In patients with IgA vasculitis, which was previously known as Henoch-Schönlein purpura, the patient may have renal involvement along with such kind of small vessel vasculitis. In cryoglobulinic vasculitis, there are some renal damage also. And in patients with hepatitis C virus infection, you can get both this cutaneous lesion known as necrolytic acral erythema along with your hepatitis C infection and renal involvement. Lichen planus is often associated with hepatitis C and renal involvement as well. And in amyloidosis, we have already discussed, we have already shown another picture of amyloidosis. You can get the features of racuni, some waxy papule and macroglossia with indentation of marks along the lateral border of the tongue. In cholesterol emboli of the digit, there may be simultaneous renal involvement as well. And this was an interesting case. The patient had jaundice and subconjunctival hemorrhage along with renal involvement. The patient was proved to be a case of leptospirosis. And there are certain disorder that may be due to association with renal transplantation. Particularly, these are due to use of immunosuppressive drug. You may get extensive herpes zoster. You may get subcutaneous mycosis. You may get Cushingoid appearance due to extensive use of steroid, along with some dermatophyte infection is evident here. You may get flaring of the viral infection. This is actually molluscum contagiosum, extensive wart, extensive dermatophytosis, tinea, cellulitis. And sometimes the complications of renal transplantation and long-time use of immunosuppressive may lead to basal cell carcinoma or squamous cell carcinoma. And there may be some fistula-related dermatitic changes are often found in the setting of chronic renal failure. So to sum up, in the face, you can get systemic amyloidosis, systemic sclerosis, SLE, tuberous sclerosis, the lesions of angiofibroma, DRESS syndrome, that is drug-induced drug reaction along with eosinophilia and systemic symptom. Dyspigmentation may be there in different parts of the body, muddy brown dyspigmentation, xerosis may be there, prurigo due to extreme pruritus, uremic frost you can appreciate over the trunk. You can appreciate the features of nephrogenic systemic fibrosis over the thigh, acquired perforating dermatosis and features of vasculitis in the leg. Leiomyoma you can get over the body. Calcinosis cutis may be found, particularly around elbow, over the dorsum of the hand. And in the Bathington distribution, you can get the lesions of angiokeratoma corporis diffusum in the setting of your Fabry's disease. And half and half nail may be characteristic feature of renal failure. So should I continue, sir, or stop here?
How much time you will take?
I will take another 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, you can continue.
Okay. So let us start with the cutaneous manifestations of pulmonary manifestation. So there may be some infective complication and there are some metastatic lesions that can metastasize to lung, particularly malignant melanoma, squamous cell carcinoma, Kaposi sarcoma, and sometimes cutaneous larva migrans may have associated dry cough and respiratory distress. So this was a patient with chronic arsenicosis. The patient had squamous cell carcinoma of the hand, and there are some cannonball metastases here in the lung. And these are features of squamous cell, basal cell carcinoma of the scalp. This patient I have already discussed. In the patient had rectal melanoma with cutaneous metastasis. The patient also had cannonball metastasis in the lung. So whenever we come across patients with skin colored cutaneous nodule, we have to always rule out the metastatic lesion in the lung and liver. This is another case. You can appreciate the serpiginous nature of the lesion. This is the classical lesion of cutaneous larva migrans. And the patient may have associated dry cough and dyspnea in some cases. This is another very interesting case. The patient was admitted in the Department of Medicine of RG Kar Medical College. The patient had some umbilicated nodule over his face. And histopathology, particularly with special stain with Brocott and pus stain, the lesion was proved to be a case of histoplasmosis. The patient also had pulmonary histoplasmosis. So some primary pulmonary disease may have some cutaneous manifestation. All of you know the patient may present with clubbing. The patient may have features with superior vena cava obstruction. And sometimes such lesions are often confused with angioedema. So always you have to rule out superior vena cava obstruction. You have to examine the patient thoroughly, particularly the presence of some venous prominence. This is not my picture. This was taken from BMJ. There are some multiple concentric rings over the different parts of the body. These are known as erythema gyratorum repens. They are concentric raised serpiginous bands with skin peeling. They are typical of erythema gyratorum repens. They are often found in the setting of bronchogenic carcinoma. This was another interesting case. The patient had ectopic ACTH secretion due to non-small cell lung carcinoma. The patient had some Addisonian pigmentation. And some congenital disorder may have some both cutaneous and pulmonary manifestations, some of which we have already discussed, like neurofibromatosis, hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia. Marfan syndrome may have some emphysematous lesion and some cutaneous lesion as well. And this is actually Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Sometimes we have seen some cases, a few cases of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome with congenital lung hypoplasia, extreme flexibility. This is known as Gorlin sign. This is thumb sign. And in case of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you can appreciate the yellow discoloration of the nail. The patient may have pleural effusion, bronchial hyperresponsiveness, bronchiectasis, bronchitis, or even sinusitis in the setting of yellow nail syndrome. And this patient, we have followed up the patient from day 0 to 5 years. The patient had some lung fibrosis as well. The patient had extreme cutis laxa. It is known as de Barcy syndrome. So lung may have some disease may also simultaneously affect both lung and cutaneous system. Progressive systemic sclerosis, SLE, dermatomyositis. The patient had mononeuritis multiplex along with vesicular breath sound with prolonged expiration, palpable purpura, rhonchi, pulmonary infiltrate, and the patient also had eosinophilia. Actually, the patient had eosinophilia with granulomatous polyangiitis that was previously known as Chirac-Strauss syndrome. Sometimes whenever you come across a patient with vasculitis along with upper respiratory, lower respiratory, and renal involvement, we have to rule out granulomatosis with polyangiitis or Wegener's granulomatosis. You can particularly appreciate this brownish discoloration of these lesions, cutaneous lesions. These are actually due to sarcoidosis. And the gingiva is also infiltrated with sarcoidal granuloma here. Another patient with sarcoidosis, we often come across lung involvement in such patients. And histopathology usually opens the Pandora's box, the classical naked granuloma of sarcoidosis. This patient we have already discussed. The patient had neurosarcoidosis along with pulmonary sarcoidosis. Another patient with pulmonary sarcoidosis and cutaneous lesion. So skin is an accessible area. So whenever we are in doubt, we can do a biopsy from this lesion, which may resolve the puzzle. And this is a very interesting case. The patient had interstitial lung disease. The CT scan report and clinical examination was suggestive of interstitial lung disease. The patient had albinism and nystagmus and some freckle-like lesion on different parts of his body. The patient also had some ecchymotic areas on different parts of his body. You can appreciate some clotted blood in his nostril due to epistaxis. The blood parameters were normal. And actually, this is a case of Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome, which may present with such features. And some freckle-like pigmentation is nowadays described in the setting of Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome. Another very common thing, common setting, patient usually have bronchial asthma and flexural eczematous changes. These are very classical of atopic dermatitis. So in atopic patients, along with the upper respiratory feature, patient often presents with features of bronchial asthma. The characteristic raindrop pigmentation can be appreciated here, and the characteristic keratotic papules on different parts of his hand. This is actually chronic arsenicosis. The patient often had lung fibrosis. Cutaneous lupus vulgaris or cutaneous tuberculosis is often associated with pulmonary involvement. And erythema multiforme may be associated with Mycoplasma pneumonia. This is a case of scrofuloderma along with pulmonary involvement. This is a case of lymphoma with cutaneous changes. And what is this? This is the result of chronic smoking. The patient had squamous cell carcinoma of the lung. So the features of smoking can also give some clue to the diagnosis of the nature and etiology of underlying lung carcinoma. This is a case of lupus vulgaris with associated pleural effusion. In ITU, we often come across such patients. So these are actually herpes simplex infection, and often may be a consequence of unsterilized intubation and Ryle's tube insertion. And these things are often important to know, particularly for the pulmonologist, because we have come across several cases of such lesions. This is known as retiform purpura. You can appreciate the branching nature of the lesion with some central necrotic areas. These are actually the lesions of purpura fulminans, and they are very common in the setting of pneumonia with sepsis. And the ultimate final common pathway of these lesions are DIC. Another case of purpura fulminans progressing towards symmetrical peripheral gangrene. This is a case of pulmonary sepsis with symmetrical peripheral gangrene. So there are several skin changes due to the drugs used to treat the respiratory disease as well. And to sum up, over the face, we can appreciate the features of superior vena cava obstruction. You can appreciate some appendigeal tumor to delineate the syndromic association. Gorlin sign is a feature of Ehlers-Danlos. You can get the features of squamous cell carcinoma with metastasis or systemic sclerosis, systemic sclerosis or SLE, features of SLE, features of dermatomyositis, features of Wegener's granulomatosis or GPA, granulomatosis with polyangiitis, features of sarcoidosis. Sjogren you can find with dryness of the eyes and oral mucosa, cyanosis may be there. In the chest, you can appreciate the venous prominence of superior vena cava obstruction. And features of vasculitis may be evident over the limbs, particularly the lower limbs. Textural dermatitis is a feature of atopy. Erythema gyratorum repens is often associated with bronchogenic carcinoma. Angiokeratoma corporis diffusum, that is Fabry's disease, may rarely have some lung features. Peripheral symmetrical gangrene may be a feature of sepsis with pneumonia. You may get claving, yellow nail with the characteristic lung findings, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hyperextensibility of the digits. In Marfan, you may get some spider-like finger. Pigmentation may be a feature of ectopic acetate secretion due to bronchogenic carcinoma. Some keratotic papule may be a clue to the diagnosis of chronic arsenicosis, and erythema multiforme along with pneumonia may be a feature of Mycoplasma pneumonia. So before coming to conclusion, I will again invite you to join the seminar on 23rd. And in that session, we'll discuss particularly on autoimmune connective tissue disorder, endocrinal disorder beyond diabetes mellitus, and hepatobiliary disorder. And we have the faculties, Dr. Purushottam Chatterjee, who is a consultant endocrinologist, Dr. Pradyut Sinha Mahapatra from rheumatology, and Dr. Jayanto Samanto, who is the assistant professor of PGIME at Chandigarh from gastroenterology department, along with the dermatological faculties.
Now at the outset, I must congratulate and also thank Sudeep for an excellent, as Govinda Chatterjee and Apurva has said, in my last 35 or 40 years in this medical profession, I have never seen such a thorough medicine dermatologist. Really, hats off to you. We are very proud of you, and my sincere thanks on the behalf of API and ICP. Now next, my thanks to all our fellow Board of Council members of ICP West Bengal for arranging this. And I must also thank the participant. We had a very large number of participants today. At present it is 41, it was more than 50. And I must also thank our office staff for giving us the logistics. And here I pass on to Professor Amol Banerjee to conclude.
Thank you, Rotin. Today, the participants, total participants were around about 80.
80? Oh.
Yeah. As shown by the app. Anyway, you have given the thanks. I am really impressed by the amazing pictorial talk by Sudeep. Really, this is a very rare collection of different images he have shown to us related to different internal medicines. Anyway, these things we require nowadays to this sort of collection, you should be. This is my personal appreciation to you. You have done a great job. With a few words of appreciation, I actually adjourned this session till 24th of October